Toxic people. You already know who they are. The moment I said it, someone's face popped into your mind. Maybe it's a coworker who drains the life out of every meeting. Maybe it's a family member who turns every holiday into a battlefield. Maybe it's that so-called friend who smiles to your face but cuts you behind your back. The truth is, you don't have to search far. Toxic people are everywhere. And here's the reality. You can't avoid them. Life will always put them in your path. The question is not if you'll meet them. The question is when they show up. How do you deal with them without letting them destroy your peace, your focus, your energy, and your future? See, most of us make one of two mistakes. Either we fight fire. With fire, we get angry, defensive, explosive, and suddenly we're trapped in the same toxicity we were trying to escape. Or we do the opposite. We stay quiet, we tolerate it, we let it slide, and little by little, their poison seeps in until we don't even recognize ourselves anymore. That's why so many people stay stuck. They let toxic people run their lives, not by force, but by reaction. And reaction is exactly what toxic people want. They thrive on it. Your outrage feeds them. Your silence enables them. Either way, they win, and you lose. But what if there's a smarter way? What if dealing with toxic people isn't about fighting harder or giving up? What if the secret isn't about them at all? It's about you. Think about this. You don't control who shows up in your life. You don't control their actions, their words, their drama, but you do control how much access they get. You control how much of your energy you hand over. You control whether they succeed in pulling you into their chaos or whether you rise above it. That is the power most people forget they have. And that is exactly what we're going to unlock tonight. Because here's the truth. Toxic people don't ruin lives. Unchecked access to toxic people ruins lives. And once you learn the strategies, once you learn the mindset, once you understand the smartest way to deal with them, you stop being their victim and start being untouchable. You become the kind of person who can walk into the storm and not be shaken. And when you can do that, nothing and no one can hold you back. So let me ask you, are you ready to stop letting toxic people write your story? Are you ready to stop giving them the power to decide how you feel, how you think, how you live? Tonight, I'm going to give you the tools, but you need to bring the decision, because once you decide that your peace is more valuable than their poison, everything changes. And that's when you stop surviving toxic people and start outsmarting them. You already know what it feels like to walk into a room and sense the air gets heavier. That one person enters and suddenly the energy shifts. Conversations get tense, your guard goes up, and without even realizing it, you're bracing yourself. That's the power of toxic people. They don't just take space. They consume it. They drain it. They manipulate it until it feels like you're walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. Here's the hard truth most people don't want to admit. Toxic people are not going away. They're not confined to one workplace, one friend circle, one family gathering. They exist everywhere. And if you think your solution is to avoid them forever, you're already setting yourself up for disappointment. Life doesn't give us the option to handpick every single person we encounter. You can leave one job only to find the same type of person at the next. You can distance yourself from one relationship only to attract another version of the same toxicity. The question is never if you'll face toxic people. The real question is, how do you deal with them without losing yourself? That's where most people get it wrong. They fall into one of two traps. The first trap is reaction. Toxic people push a button and we explode. We argue, we shout, we match their energy with equal or greater force. In that moment, we feel powerful. We feel like we're fighting back. But what really happens, they win. Because toxic people thrive on drama. They're fueled by chaos. Your anger is like oxygen to their fire. And once you hand it over, you've already lost control. The second trap is silence. It's thinking, if I just let it go, if I don't make waves, maybe they'll calm down, maybe they'll change. But that silence doesn't protect you. It enables them, toxic people, read your tolerance as permission. They test how far they can go. And every time you stay quiet, you draw the line further and further back until there are no boundaries left. That's when you wake up one day realizing you've given away your peace, your energy, and your confidence, all because you thought staying quiet was safer. So here's the reality. Neither reaction nor silence is the answer. If you want to truly protect yourself from toxic people, you need a smarter way. And that smarter way doesn't begin with them, it begins with you. Think about it. You can't control who they are. You can't rewire their personality. You can't convince them to suddenly become kind, respectful, or self-aware. If you've ever tried to change someone who thrives on negativity, you already know it doesn't work. You're not in charge of fixing them. You're in charge of managing yourself around them. And that's where wisdom comes in, because the smartest way to deal with toxic people has nothing to do with changing them and everything to do with reclaiming your power. But here's the catch. Most people don't even realize how much power they're handing away. Every time you let a toxic person dictate your mood, you've given them access. Every time you obsess over what they said, replaying it in your head long after the conversation is over, you've given them space in your mind. Every time you change your decisions, your actions, your confidence because of their words, you've made them the author of your story. And when you do that long enough, you forget that you're supposed to be the one holding the pen. So let me frame this conversation for you in the simplest way possible. Toxic people survive on fuel. Their fuel is your attention, your reaction, your energy. When you explode in anger, they feed. When you cower in silence, they feed. When you lie awake at night, replaying the argument in your mind, they feed. But what happens when you stop feeding them? What happens when you cut off the oxygen supply? They suffocate. They lose their grip. And suddenly, the person who once felt untouchable loses their power. Not because they changed, but because you did. That's what this entire conversation is about. Cutting off the fuel supply. Reclaiming what belongs to you. Your focus, your energy, your peace, and refusing to hand it over to someone who thrives on destroying it. That's the smartest way to deal with toxic people. Not matching them blow for blow. Not pretending they'll eventually wake up and treat you differently. But mastering yourself so completely that they can't touch you. Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't about being weak. This isn't about taking the high road while someone else steamrolls you. This is about strength. Real strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself by yelling, doesn't need to crumble in silence, and doesn't need validation from the very people who are trying to break it. Real strength is knowing exactly where to place your energy and refusing to waste it on poison. So, as we move forward, I want you to keep this in mind. Toxic people are not your problem. They're inevitable. They're part of life. The real problem is how much power you give them. And the solution, it's not about outshouting them. It's not about avoiding them. It's about becoming so disciplined, so wise, and so grounded in who you are that their games don't even register on your radar. That's the smartest way to deal with toxic people. And once you master it, you stop playing their game altogether. Because here's the truth. No one tells you toxic people don't destroy strong people. Toxic people only destroy people who hand them the keys. And from this moment on, you're not handing anyone the keys to your peace, your focus, or your life. If you want to beat toxic people at their own game, the first thing you have to do is understand how they operate. You can't fight an enemy you don't understand. You can't protect yourself from manipulation if you don't recognize the signs. Too many people think toxicity is just about someone being rude, negative, or difficult. It's deeper than that. Toxic people are driven by patterns, by needs, by insecurities that manifest in predictable ways. Once you can see the psychology behind their behavior, you stop being surprised by it. And when you stop being surprised, you stop being controlled. Here's the first thing you need to know. Toxic people feed on reaction. They thrive on getting under your skin. Why? Because reaction gives them validation. Imagine a person who feels small inside, but the moment they trigger you, when you yell, cry, defend yourself, they feel powerful. They feel like they're in control. That's their win. Your emotional reaction becomes their trophy. This is why some toxic people deliberately say things they know will hurt. They don't want truth. They want control. Second, toxic people use manipulation as a weapon. They twist words, shift blame, and create confusion, so you're always second-guessing yourself. Ever walked away from a conversation with someone and thought, wait, am I the crazy one? Did I do something wrong? That's not an accident. That's called gaslighting. a classic toxic tactic. They rewrite reality until you start doubting your own memory, your own perception, even your own worth. The goal is simple: keep you off balance, because a person who is off balance is easier to control. Another psychological tactic is guilt tripping. Toxic people are masters at flipping the script. Suddenly, they're the victim, and you're the one who should feel guilty for standing up for yourself. They'll say things like, "I guess I'm just a terrible person," or "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." That's not vulnerability. It's strategy. They weaponize guilt to make you back down. And the moment you do, they've reinforced the behavior. Negativity is also a favorite tool. Toxic people walk into a room and dump their problems, complaints, and bitterness onto everyone else. Why? Because negativity spreads. It's contagious. If they can drag you down to their emotional level, then they no longer feel alone in their misery. Misery loves company. And toxic people make sure they always have plenty of it. This is why you leave interactions with them feeling drained, heavy, and exhausted. It's not you. It's the psychological weight they've unloaded onto you. Here's another truth. Toxic people often project what they accuse you of is usually what they're guilty of themselves. If they call you selfish, chances are they're the one acting selfish. If they accuse you of being controlling, it's because they're the one pulling the strings. Projection is a defense mechanism. It allows them to avoid accountability by shifting the spotlight onto you. And if you don't recognize it for what it is, you'll waste energy defending yourself instead of realizing the accusation has nothing to do with you. Now let's dig deeper. Toxic behavior often stems from insecurity. At their core, many toxic people are deeply insecure. They don't feel enough, smart enough, loved enough, respected enough. Instead of addressing that insecurity, they mask it with control, manipulation, or arrogance. Think about the bully who dominates everyone else. On the surface, they look strong. Underneath, they're fragile. Their toxicity is a shield, a way to hide the truth about themselves. But here's the problem. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior. It only explains it. You can feel empathy without granting them access. Think of it this way. Toxic people are like quicksand. The more you fight emotionally, the deeper you sink. Their pull isn't physical, it's psychological. They lure you into defending, explaining, reacting. And once you're in, it's hard to get out. That's why understanding their tactics is so powerful. It allows you to see the trap before you step in. You stop taking their words at face value. You stop internalizing their accusations. Instead, you see the pattern, and once you see the pattern, you can break it. Here's an analogy that might stick with you. Imagine you're walking down the street, and a stranger starts screaming insults. Would you take it personally? Probably not. You'd think something's wrong with that person and keep walking. But when the toxic person is a coworker, a partner, a friend, or a family member, suddenly we give their words weight. We absorb their poison as truth. That's the mistake. Toxic people don't get power because their words are true. They get power because you believe they're true. So the smartest way forward begins with this mental shift. Recognize their behavior for what it is. A strategy, a projection, a pattern, and not a reflection of your worth. Once you understand that, you stop dancing to their tune. You stop being the puppet because you finally see the strings. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Toxic people will often escalate when you stop reacting. Why? Because reaction is their food. If you cut them off, they'll push harder at first. They'll try different tactics: anger, guilt, silence, charm, anything to get a rise out of you. This is where most people cave. They think, maybe if I give in just this once, they'll calm down. But giving in only reinforces the cycle. Understanding this escalation is key. It's not a sign that you're failing, it's proof that you're winning. Because when you starve their need for reaction long enough, they eventually realize they no longer control you. Understanding the psychology of toxic people doesn't just protect you, it empowers you. It shifts the dynamic. Instead of being caught off guard, you start anticipating their moves. Instead of questioning yourself, you start questioning their behavior. And that changes everything. Toxic people lose their grip, not because they suddenly get better, but because you've gotten stronger. You've stopped handing them the very thing they need to thrive, your energy. And once you see that clearly, you'll never look at them the same way again. You'll see their manipulation for what it is. You'll see their negativity as a reflection of them, not you. Most importantly, you'll remember the most powerful truth of all. You are not responsible for their behavior, but you are responsible for protecting your peace. The smartest way to deal with toxic people begins with mastering one thing above all else, your emotions. That's the battlefield. Toxic people are experts at pulling you into their storm, and the second you react, they've got you. They want you angry, defensive, rattled, because that's when you hand them control. Emotional control then is not just a skill, it's your shield, your armor, your weapon, all rolled into one. And the truth is, if you can't master yourself, you'll never master the situation. Let's start with why this matters so much. Think back to the last time someone toxic got under your skin. Maybe they said something cruel, passive-aggressive, or just plain disrespectful. Your first instinct was to fire back or shut down. That rush of anger, that sting of hurt. That's exactly the reaction they were fishing for. When you lose control, you lose perspective. Your emotions hijack your logic, and suddenly you're not responding with wisdom, you're reacting with raw impulse. And impulse is what toxic people know how to exploit. So the first step is awareness. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you recognize the wave before it crashes over you. It means you notice, okay, this comment is meant to provoke me, and you choose not to give them the satisfaction of seeing you rattled. That pause, the moment between their action and your reaction, is where your power lives. There's a technique people call gray rocking. Imagine yourself as a dull, uninteresting gray rock. No drama, no spark, no reaction. When a toxic person throws bait at you, instead of biting, you stay calm, flat, neutral. You don't feed their fire with your anger. You don't fuel their ego with your defense. You give them nothing. To them, it's boring. And that's the point. Toxic people feed on reaction. When you stop giving it, you starve them. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. Emotional control takes discipline. It requires you to resist the urge to clap back, to prove your point, to win the argument. It means you have to swallow the temporary satisfaction of reacting in order to secure the long-term peace of not being owned. And that takes strength. Think of it like this. Anyone can yell back, but not everyone can hold their ground in silence. Anyone can explode, but it takes real power to sit there calm and unshaken while someone tries to rattle you. That's not weakness, it's mastery. Here's an analogy that might help. Imagine toxic people are fishermen, and their comments, their actions, are hooks loaded with bait. They dangle insults, guilt trips, drama, waiting for you to bite. The moment you grab the hook by reacting, you're caught. They reel you in, and now you're playing by their rules. Emotional control is refusing to take the bait. You see the hook, you recognize the bait, and you walk away untouched. That's not just smart. That's freedom. Now let's get practical. How do you build this kind of control? One tool is the power of the pause. Before responding to anything a toxic person says, give yourself space, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it takes. That tiny pause interrupts your knee-jerk reaction and allows your logical brain to catch up. It's like installing a buffer between their behavior and your response. In that space, you get to ask yourself, what outcome do I want here? Do I want to argue? Do I want to feed them? Or do I want to keep my peace? 9 times out of 10, the answer is clear. Another tool is emotional detachment. This doesn't mean you stop caring about people altogether. It means you stop letting their words dictate your value. When a toxic person lashes out, it's not about you. It's about them. Their poison is a projection of their own pain, insecurity, or need for control. When you internalize that, you give them power. When you detach and remind yourself, this isn't mine to carry, you keep your peace intact. Breathing is another underrated strategy. Yes, it sounds simple, but when your body floods with adrenaline, your breath is the first thing to go. Shallow, rapid breathing feeds anxiety and makes you more reactive. Deep, controlled breaths calm your nervous system, keep you grounded, and signal to your body that you're safe. The calmer your body, the sharper your mind, and the harder it is for anyone to knock you off balance. Here's something else to remember. Not every battle is worth fighting. Toxic people will bait you into endless arguments, circular conversations that never go anywhere. If you're arguing with someone who has no intention of understanding you, you're not in a conversation, you're in a trap. The smartest move isn't to win the fight. It's to step out of the ring entirely. Walking away isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's choosing not to waste your limited energy on a fight that can't be won. But emotional control doesn't just protect you in the moment. It reshapes how toxic people interact with you long term. When they realize they can't get a rise out of you, they either escalate temporarily or lose interest altogether. Either way, you win. Because every time you refuse to bite, you're teaching them that their tactics don't work on you anymore. And once they see that, they'll either back off or expose themselves for what they really are. Think of someone you admire, someone who commands respect. They don't do it by shouting louder than everyone else. They do it by being unshakable. Their presence is calm, steady, unmovable. That's what emotional control gives you. It makes you untouchable in a way that no toxic person can compete with. They can throw all the drama they want, but if you don't react, it bounces off. And that's when you stop playing defense and start owning the game. So the next time a toxic person tries to bait you, remember this: you don't owe them your reaction. You don't owe them your anger. You don't owe them your energy. Your emotions belong to you. And the moment you decide to protect them, no one can take that from you. That's mastery. That's strength. And that's the smartest way to deal with toxic people, by refusing to let them dictate how you feel or who you are. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about protecting what matters most. Your peace, your focus, and your energy. If emotional control is your armor, then boundaries are your shield. Without them, toxic people will walk into your life, rearrange your priorities, and drain you until you have nothing left. With them, you take back authority over your space. Boundaries are not selfish. They are survival. They are the line that says, this is where you end and I begin. And the truth is, if you don't draw that line, toxic people will draw it for you, and they will draw it in their favor, not yours. Let's get clear on something. Toxic people test limits. It's part of their psychology. They push and prod to see how much access they can get. If you let them call at midnight, they'll call at midnight. If you let them interrupt you in meetings, they'll interrupt every meeting. If you let them disrespect you once, they'll do it again and again. Why? Because you've taught them it's okay. That's the brutal truth. What you allow, you endorse. What you tolerate, you teach. If you don't enforce boundaries, you're silently telling toxic people this behavior is acceptable. Ew. So how do you actually set boundaries? First, you have to know your non-negotiables. You can't enforce what you haven't defined. Ask yourself, what drains me? What do I leave feeling resentful about? What behaviors cross the line for me? That's where your boundaries live. For example, if constant negativity drains you, your boundary might be limiting how much time you spend with someone who only complains. If disrespect crosses the line, your boundary might be refusing to engage in conversations where you're being talked down to. Boundaries are specific. They target the behaviors that rob you of peace. Once you know your boundaries, the next step is communicating them. And here's the hard part. Boundaries mean nothing if you don't enforce them. Too many people set boundaries in their head, but never voice them out loud. They expect others to just get it. Toxic people won't get it. They're counting on you to stay quiet. So you have to be clear. You don't need long explanations or justifications. Boundaries are best communicated simply and firmly. I'm not available after 8 p.m. I won't continue this conversation if you keep raising your voice. I don't discuss personal matters at work. That's it. Direct, respectful, unapologetic. Now here's the part most people struggle with. Enforcing boundaries feels uncomfortable at first. especially if the toxic person is a family member, a boss, or someone you've let slide for years. The first time you say no, you'll feel guilty. The first time you hold firm, you'll second guess yourself. That's normal. But here's the thing. You can either deal with the short-term discomfort of setting boundaries, or you can live with the long-term destruction of never having them. Which one costs more? Which one hurts more? The short sting of saying enough, or the endless erosion of your peace? Another key point, boundaries don't require explanation. Toxic people will often demand one. They'll say, why are you being so difficult? Why are you acting different? That's manipulation. They want you to justify yourself so they can argue you out of it. But boundaries aren't debates. They're declarations. You don't need to explain why you won't pick up the phone at midnight. You don't need to explain why you're leaving the room when things turn hostile. You simply set the line and walk it. The more you explain, the more ammunition you hand them. And don't confuse boundaries with walls. Boundaries are flexible, intentional, and designed to protect you. Walls are rigid and built out of fear. With walls, you shut everyone out, even the good. With boundaries, you filter. You let in the people who respect you, and you keep out the ones who drain you. This distinction is important because some people will accuse you of being cold or distant when you start enforcing boundaries. That's not true. You're not closing yourself off. You're choosing who gets access, and access to you should be earned. Here's a practical example. Imagine a coworker who constantly gossips and spreads negativity. You don't have the option to avoid them entirely, but you can control the terms of engagement. Your boundary might be, I'll talk to you about work, but I won't engage in gossip. So when they start, you redirect, I'm not comfortable with this conversation. Let's get back to the project. At first they'll test you, they'll push, but the more consistent you are, the clearer the message becomes. This door is closed. Now think about family. This is the hardest area to set boundaries because guilt runs deep. Maybe it's a parent who criticizes every choice you make, or a sibling who constantly borrows money but never pays it back. Setting boundaries here doesn't mean cutting ties. It means refusing to enable destructive patterns. I'm not discussing this topic with you anymore. I can't lend you money. These statements may feel heavy, but they free you from resentment. And remember this, loving someone doesn't mean giving them unlimited access to mistreat you. Workplace boundaries are equally critical. Toxic colleagues or bosses can dominate your life if you let them. That's why it's important to define professional boundaries. When you're available, what tasks are yours, how you expect to be spoken to. You don't have to be rude, you just have to be consistent. Every time you enforce a boundary, you reinforce your value. And here's something powerful. Boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself from others. They're about teaching yourself how to value your own time, energy, and worth. Every boundary you set is a declaration of self-respect. It's you saying, I matter enough to protect my space. And once you start living that way, you'll notice something remarkable. People begin to treat you the way you treat yourself. Respect is contagious. But here's the warning. Toxic people will not like your boundaries. In fact, they'll resist them the hardest. They'll guilt trip you, criticize you, accuse you of being selfish. Why? Because your boundaries cut off their access to your energy. They don't want you strong. They want you compliant. And the moment you stop feeding them, they'll escalate. Expect it. Don't mistake their resistance as proof that you're wrong. It's proof that you're finally doing it right. Boundaries are the ultimate filter. They separate who adds to your life from who drains it. They turn chaos into clarity. They give you back authority over your own story. And once you set them, you'll realize something powerful. Toxic people only had as much power as you gave them. Boundaries are how you take that power back. This is where everything comes together. You've seen how toxic people operate. You've learned that their power isn't in who they are, it's in how much of yourself you hand over to them. You've walked through emotional control, you've drawn your boundaries, and now it's time to take the final step. Reclaiming your power. Because at the end of the day, the smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't just about surviving them. It's about making sure they no longer define you, derail you, or dominate your story. This is about stepping into a place where their chaos can't touch you anymore. Think about it. How much of your life has already been dictated by someone else's negativity? How many sleepless nights have you had because of something cruel? They said, how many opportunities have you missed because you were too busy doubting yourself after being torn down? How many times have you walked away from a conversation, replaying it over and over, wishing you had responded differently? That is the cost of letting toxic people live rent-free in your head. And if you add it up, the cost is massive. Time, energy, dreams, confidence. But here's the good news. The moment you choose to reclaim your power, the meter stops running. Reclaiming your power is a decision. It's not about waiting for them to apologize, to change, to recognize the damage they've done. That may never happen. And if you wait for it, you're giving them more control. No, reclaiming power is about saying, enough. I may not control what they do, but I will control what I do from here forward. It's cutting the invisible cord that ties your worth to their opinion. It's releasing the grip their behavior has on your emotions. It's declaring that your life is too valuable to be wasted on their poison. One of the strongest ways to reclaim your power is to shift your focus from them back to you. Toxic people want you to obsess about them. What they said, what they did, what they might do next. That's how they keep you in their orbit. But every minute you spend focusing on them is a minute stolen from your growth. So instead of asking, why are they like this? Start asking, what do I need right now? What am I building? What kind of person do I want to be? When you put the spotlight back on yourself, you stop being a supporting character in their drama and start being the lead in your own life. Another part of reclaiming your power is forgiveness, but not in the way people often think. Forgiveness doesn't mean you excuse their behavior or invite them back into your space. Forgiveness means you refuse to carry the weight of their actions any longer. It's saying, what you did hurt me, but it will not define me. I refuse to let your poison take up space in my future. Forgiveness is less about them and more about freeing yourself. It's cutting the anchor that's been holding you down. And here's something most people don't realize. Reclaiming your power doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means standing your ground. It means showing up to the same job, the same family event, the same environment, but walking in differently, calmer, stronger, untouchable. It's refusing to let their behavior bend you out of shape. Because true power isn't about avoiding difficult people. True power is about being unshakable in their presence. Now let's talk about momentum. Power grows when you act on it consistently. The first time you hold your boundary, you'll feel shaky. The first time you stay calm instead of exploding, you'll feel strange. The first time you refuse to let their words sink in, you'll feel almost numb. But keep going. Every time you practice control, every time you enforce a boundary, every time you refuse to give them your energy, you're stacking bricks. Brick by brick, you're building a fortress around your peace. And soon that fortress becomes unbreakable. There's also a ripple effect when you reclaim your power. Other people notice, your kids, your coworkers, your friends. They see how you handle toxic behavior, and it gives them permission to do the same. Suddenly, your strength becomes a model. You're not just protecting yourself. You're raising the standard for everyone around you. You're proving that you don't have to live at the mercy of other people's dysfunction. That's leadership. That's influence. That's real power. But here's the challenge I want to leave you with. Don't just listen to this and nod along. Don't just walk away inspired for a few minutes and then slip back into the same patterns. Take one action today. Maybe it's writing down the boundaries you need to set. Maybe it's rehearsing a calm response for the next time someone tries to bait you. Maybe it's deciding you won't answer that toxic text tonight. Small steps create big shifts. You don't reclaim your power in one giant leap. You reclaim it in consistent choices, day after day. And here's the final truth. Toxic people will always exist. You can't erase them from the world, but you don't need to. Because the goal isn't to change them. The goal is to change how you respond to them. When you reclaim your power, you become untouchable. Their chaos swirls, but you stand steady. Their poison drips, but it doesn't reach you. Their drama flares, but it dies in the space you refuse to give it. That's what it means to win. So here's my call to you. Stop waiting. Stop hoping they'll change. Stop letting your peace, your focus, and your future hang on their behavior. Draw the line. Take back the keys. Reclaim the space in your head and your heart. Your power has been yours all along. You just need to stop giving it away. Because in the end, the smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't to beat them at their own game. It's to rise so far above the game that they can't reach you anymore. And when you do that, you'll look back and realize something incredible. They never really had power over you. They only had the power you allowed them to have. And now, finally, you're done allowing it. Toxic people will always exist, but your life is too valuable to be controlled by their chaos. The strongest move you will ever make is not proving them wrong, not shouting louder, not playing their game. It's reclaiming your peace and protecting your power. Remember this, they only win if you hand them the keys. The moment you choose to master your emotions, set unshakable boundaries, and refuse to give them access to your energy, you rise above their reach. And when you rise, you don't just free yourself. You set the standard for everyone watching you. So leave here with this conviction. You are not defined by their poison. You are defined by your strength. Protect it, live it, and never again give it away.